Very good evening to all of you. And this is another knowledge session which we are conducting. Uh, this will be primarily aimed at sales, how you can decode sales. And we have with us Mr. Aditya Chakravarti. I'll give you his brief if any of you have not gone through. He leads a global marketing team for Smart INC, which is a data company based in San Jose, California. He has 16 years of marketing experience and he has spearheaded global marketing teams for startups, medium sized, as well as multinational organizations. During his tenure at KPIT, Purix or Ethos, he was responsible for strategizing new product development, interacting with industry analysts, managing CRM tools, developing sales materials, driving sales campaigns, and representing organization at various international events. Aditya is an alumnus of noted IIM, Calcutta, and has an MBA in advertising and marketing from UK. He is visiting faculty for a number of management colleges in Mumbai, teaching international marketing. So here I present to you Mr. Aditya Chakravarti. Aditya.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Mr. Murray?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anita. Hi, guys. My name is Aditya. Like Mr. Murray mentioned, couple of years in sales and marketing. And what I'm going to cover today is basically for sales teams, what are the best practices, follow-ups, best practices for reporting, why you need reporting, all of that. And I think it'll help a lot of guys to understand what are the best things, what are the things that people follow out there. And these practices are basically what I have followed in my tenure, and they've helped me a lot in garnering ROI from organization, getting in more leads, making sure the conversions are more, and overall helping the company in getting more sales. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, just 1 second. Yeah. So this slide will tell you exactly what you already must have or must know. So you definitely, either reporting to somebody on top of them or just having under them. Also, a lot of owners and founders, directors of companies. Like Mr. Mora said, I've managed sales and marketing for startups. I've managed sales and marketing for medium-sized and large organizations. So I exactly know the pinpoints of the sales and marketing people. And this slide actually tells you, what you already have. So definitely, sales team that has cold callers, email campaign guys, ground sales guys. You definitely have a database of people that you call to. You absolutely have a follow-up process in place. It can be any type of follow-up. I mean, I recently did a small presentation to a sales team a couple of days back, and it was very interesting. They have their own type of follow-up. Very to what I'm going to talk about, but those are essentially that's my way of follow up, or that's the way that I follow for my teams. And you must be having your own process in place which works for you. It's amazing. But if it doesn't give you the ROI you need, you definitely need to follow what I'm telling you. That's the best. This is followed by many organizations out there in the world. you definitely have a CRM, or you probably record it on an Excel sheet. Your calls, your emails, how many calls you make, how many emails you send, so on and so forth. Quick details on what we will cover in today's presentation. I'm going to cover the best practices on how to reach your prospects, how to follow up on your existing prospects, not customers, not clients. We're talking about prospects. Basic issue that I have found when I talk to sales teams, especially in Asia, is that they have this word clients or customers, which they use as a broad keyword for everything, for all people that you reach out to. A prospect is your first level of reaching a customer. A prospect is not your customer, or prospect is not your client. So, sorry, was there a question?
Your voice is not this thing. Not able to hear many people say that.
The voice is lot of cracking is there. It is not clarity.
Sir, a request. If all
Yeah,
can
even
hide
the video also is a lot of shaking is there.
if all can hide the video, so the voice will be more clear. The band will bandwidth will get more stronger.
Okay, audio and video we have been muted.
Yes, sir.
Hold on one second. Is this any better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, awesome.
Request everybody to mute the audio video also.
Should I continue?
Please continue.
Still some more people are there. Please mute the video.
Okay, my video is off, and I'm talking to the mic.
You have to have the switch on the video.
My
Speaker
video
has to switch on the video.
Okay, I'm confused. Should my video be on, you're saying?
Yeah. Your video has to be on.
Okay, got it. Hold on one second. Okay. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, great. If everyone can go on mute, I think it'll be much better. If my voice is cracking or if it's not clear, maybe I can repeat some things if you wish. There are a lot of chats coming in. I'm not monitoring those. I hope Mr. More and Anita is doing that. Is it any better now? Oh, it's clear now. Great. Balbir, thank you, sir. Okay. So what we're going to cover is the best practices on how to reach your prospects. Okay. How to follow up on your existing prospects. Like I was saying, I mean, when I talk to a lot of sales teams here in India, mostly in India, but also Asia, they talk about customers and prospects and clients in the same breath. Well, they all three are different people. Prospect is somebody who you haven't ever spoken to. That's what we're going to talk about today. A client is somebody who you've already reached out to once or twice and you're following up with them. And a customer is obviously your customer. He's paid you and he's in your customer list. Today we are going to talk about only prospects. Oh, Mr. Ashok has some issue with the voice. Is everybody else able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I guess this some people have some issues with probably their own broadband, I think. But Mr. Mori and Anita, if you can please let me know if I'm not audible, I can repeat myself. What we'll also cover is what do you add in your reporting cycle? Now, a lot of the sales guys I talk to are they have an issue with reporting. How many calls they've made, how many people they have reached out to, how many prospects have they not reached out to, all of that. So what I'm going to cover is how important that is for the management, for the owners, for the directors, and for themselves, and for the sales guys themselves. We'll touch a little bit about how to monitor your prospect. We will also touch upon how to classify your prospect or how to tier your prospects. Okay, so So we've covered what you already know and what we will cover. We will cover the importance of sales follow-up. Now, like I said earlier, there are 80% of people who are sales guys on this call, and they absolutely understand what follow-up means and how stressful it is. Believe me, I know it's really, really stressful, but I'll try and decode it for you. Maybe make life easier as you go ahead after the presentation. Maybe take something back, at home with you guys. Best practice around follow-up with prospects. We will cover prospect monitoring, how to monitor your prospects, and how to tier your prospect and your customer. And also what is sales reporting. Let's start with sales follow-up. I have some, sorry. Was there a question? Okay. Anita, could you mute everybody? I think there's still some chatter on the chat.
I already did, but people unmute themselves.
Okay, cool. If they have questions, they can unmute themselves. It's fine. But the best way to make this presentation better is if you ask questions at the end of the presentation, then I can answer them better. And Anita, also let me know if my voice is not clear. I can then repeat myself. Yes.
So your voice is clear now, sir.
Okay, absolutely cool. Awesome. So I have some questions here for sales guys. I mean, if you have a pen and paper in hand, I know I have. You can answer these questions yourself and see if you do those things already. So do you have a follow-up strategy? Yes or no? How often do you follow up? Do you categorize your follow-ups? Do you record your follow-ups? Do you have email and call follow-ups recorded? Do you know the difference between both? Do you have call and email templates with you? Do you have like specific email templates that you send to specific people? Do you have specific call templates that you send to specific people when you call them? Do you have that thing handy when you call them? Or is it, what I've seen is they typically have one email template and that is similar for all the prospects in the database. I'm a sales guy, for example, one of the 155 guys here on the call. If I'm one of them, right now, I can bet on this, that they have just one email template that they have in their draft. They put it in the main, your email, and they just send the email to 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 people, and they just assume that people will come back to you. Well, that is a practice that's followed by a lot of people out there, but that's not a really good practice for you to get a good ROI. And I'll tell you why in my, in the future slides. Finally, the question that every sales guy has, how much is too much? How much do I follow up with this one person that I'm calling? I already call him 10 times in a day. Should I just come back tomorrow and call him back? Those kind of things. We will cover those things as well. Before I begin, let's look at some facts, okay? Now, Forrester says that 58% of salespeople attempt twice to reach a prospect, which means if you think that you have competition out there, well, 58% is already wiped out, after two follow-ups. If you become the rest 42%, you will actually have better, ROI getting to your prospect. Out of 25,000 companies researched, only 24% respond to the follow-up in the first 24 hours. 55% do not respond in the first 24 hours at all, right? Which means that although some people get some response, but there are those 55% of people that actually don't respond in the first follow-up, which means you have to keep continuously following up with those people. This is the best one that I feel. In a typical firm of 100, 500 employees, there are average of 7 people involved in your buying decisions, which means that when you're trying to reach out a person and say, again, I'm a sales guy in these 164 participants, and I have a list of, say, 200 people that I reach out to on a regular basis. Now, in these 200 people, there is those 30% of people who are responsible for buying decisions. There are a lot of people who you think might be the buyers, or eventually help a buy. Was there a question? Okay. Somebody is unmuted, I guess. Anita, could you mute this person?
I'm trying.
Okay, thank you. I know there are a lot of people, so it's difficult Anita, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So Anita, I have two devices logged in. So one is muted, one is not. So just leave it like that because my phone is unmuted right now. Okay. So what is the ideal practice of a good follow-up? So first is you've got to use a follow-up schedule. Now, based on my understanding, many people do have a follow-up schedule, and it's great if you have one. Some people just use books to write their follow-ups. Some people just use Excel sheets, or some people just use means of a CRM. So we will uncover what is a good follow-up schedule. I will tell you what's the best practice on that. You got to time your follow-up for maximum impact. So not everybody wants to get contacted at 7 p.m. in the evening. We all know that. So consider yourself as a buyer. When do you pick up calls when an insurance guy or when a sales guy from a credit card company calls you? How often do you pick up? There must be one time of the day when you're free and you actually pick that call and talk to the person. Maybe you call and say, listen, don't disturb me, but you do pick that call. There is some part of the day where you don't pick the call at all, which means there is that time of the day when that sweet spot is when the person opens his email or that person picks up his call. That's the reason. That's the time when you got to hit that person. And I will follow up in the next slide. I have a follow-up slide on this point where I tell you which is the best time and which is the best day to follow up and email your prospects. Okay, the PPT just gets stuck. Sorry. You got to leverage email templates. So I explained earlier when I started, but some people had not joined in, so I'll repeat myself. You got to have email templates. Now, I'm sure everybody has an email template, but do you have email templates for specific people? Like you have 200 prospects, and I quote that because minimum prospect range is 200 in each salesperson's database. It goes up to 2,000, but typically 200 is what it is from research. So if you have 200 people, do you send the same email to 200 people, or do you have different email templates for different people? It's difficult to have an email template for each person of those, each person in those 200 people. But imagine if you categorize those 200 people. Say you have 50 people who are similar. For example, in your 200 people, you have 50 CEOs, you have 50 sales heads, you have 50 operation heads or marketing communications heads. Right? So just ensure that you have different templates for these people. It will help a lot for them to understand and what you're trying to sell them and why. Because a CEO will need a different content in his email template that will make him click that email and read that email. And a sales guy will need a different context altogether. So you have to put your mind in creating a good email template. You have to track actual contact attempts. What happens is, a sales guy picks up the call, makes the call, oh, it didn't get through. Okay, next call. And by the time he finishes the day, he's probably called about, a good sales guy has called about 60 to 70 people in a day. He reaches to about 5% of those. Now, if he tracks those in his book or in his email or in his Excel sheet or in some sort of a template, he will know when he's on the day 7, he will know that, oh, on day 1, these 5 people actually spoke to me. And on day 5, you got to reach back to those 5 people and ask them, hey, what is the follow-up and so on and so forth. I don't know who's doing this on the screen. I'm not doing this. You always have to get agreement on the next step. I mean, this is sales 101, right? Everybody does this. When you write an email to them, I'm sure there's one line that says, let me know the best time that I can get back to you. Or, why don't we talk tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the evening? Or, things close to those. So I'm sure you have that, but that has to be it is really important to have that particular line in your email template. You have to definitely track your email opens and click-throughs. I mean, Guzberg saying, you got to know if you're sending 200 emails.
I think please mute all.
Sir, you please carry on, sir. Hello, Mr. Aditya.
Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I keep getting muted. Okay. So you got to track your email opens and click-throughs, right? I mean, people who don't know what click-throughs are, click-through is basically CTR, which means that how many emails you send, how many actually went through, how many bounced back, how many people actually said, gave a negative response, how many people actually clicked and opened the email. So all of that, you got to understand that, because that is where you can build up in your next follow-up that, hey, these many people in my email follow-up actually opened my email. So let me reach out to them again, or let me call them this time. Okay. My presentation gets stuck. Okay. This is a small graph that I feel is extremely important. Okay, I was unmuted again. Hold on. Sorry. So this basically tells you if you make the first attempt, there is a 48% chance of your prospects to get to you. Your third call attempt will actually have an 81% chance. Your sixth call attempt will actually have a 93% chance. And I'm not saying it. This is research that is talking. Anybody on the call who feels I will just do 3 calls and I'm done. I'm not going to touch this prospect because what if he gets irritated? Well, that is what sales is. How many times does an insurance guy or a guy from Vodafone or Airtel calls you? Innumerable amount of times, right? I mean, that's what you got to do, because in your first, second, third, fourth, fifth attempt, you might not get success, but as you go ahead, you know what happens? After the 6th attempt, there are very few guys actually following up on that prospect. So your chance of getting through to that prospect is much, much more. So in the sense, anybody on the call who thinks that, less follow-ups is better because I want to reserve myself and I want to, I don't want to irritate the prospect. Well, you're wrong. The prospect is actually waiting for your call because he needs your service. So you got to keep following up. And in the next slide, I will talk about how much you should follow up.
Sorry,
Okay.
sir, I'm disturbing you for a moment. Actually, we can't able to see your PPT.
Really? Okay, let me stop sharing and share it again.
We are able to see that.
Okay, I'm going to share it again. Hold on.
It's perfectly visible.
I think there is a problem with the other person here.
Yes, sir.
Also, request to everybody, mute and stop your videos so the broadcast is more clearer. Please.
Yeah,
Is this better?
We can see, yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys, technological issues. We have 168 on Zoom, so I guess that has to play some role as well. And we are. I just broke my thought. Yeah. So we are on this follow-up schedule now. This particular diagram or figure you see is not something that I. Sorry. Should I go back? Did I hear go back or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. DTYG, can you please mute yourself? Okay. There are a lot of people unmuted, so there's a lot of background noise for me, Mr. Krishna. Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Aditya, just forget whoever is talking in between.
Okay, got it. I just feel somebody has a question, so I just pause.
No, don't take questions right now. We will let them put. Please,
Understood.
Everybody put your questions in the chat box. I am monitoring the chat box. So if any question is there, I will note it down and then we will take it further.
Okay, understood. I'm going to go ahead and now stop. All right. So this particular graph that you see is we call it 10 touch 20 days, which means that in 20 days you got to follow up 10 times with the prospect, 5 phone calls, 5 emails. When you call the prospect for the first time, and people who just joined in, prospect is not a client. A prospect is somebody that you haven't spoken to yet.
you still to understand who this guy is, which means you are trying to reach out to him. Okay, so prospect is not a client, prospect is not a customer. We are not talking about those things. We can have that presentation later. This is just about how to reach out to prospect, how to follow up till he comes on in your pipeline or in your customer or in your client base. Yes. So day one, I would make the first call to the person and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm calling from so-and-so. If he picks up, great. That eventually means that you got to remove all these steps and go to your next level, which we don't have in this presentation right now. What we do have is what if he doesn't pick the call, which is 98% of times people don't pick their calls. So in that sense, we'll send them an email saying that, hey, I just called you sometime back. Let me know when you have time. And then you wait for 30 minutes, you call him back. So in the sense, on the first day, when that reaches 24% of people that you saw in the earlier slide, you are making sure that you're calling him, touching him at least 3 times in a day. 2 phone calls, 1 email, right? And understanding how can I get in touch with him in a most effective manner. Day 1 is done. He doesn't get in touch with you. If he gets in touch with you on the first day, you are extremely lucky. If he doesn't, you go to day 2 when there's a cooling period. You go to day 3, you do a call with him. He picks his call, he becomes your hot prospect or an active prospect, and you move to the next level. If he doesn't pick your call, you go to day 4, 8, 14, 20, 15, and 20. A lot of times I get asked this question that, hey, what if day 20 and I still don't get in touch with this prospect? Then what happens? Well, unfortunately, you got to go back to day 1. The cycle continues until you get in touch, until he picks your call and says, hey, I'm not interested, do not call me. Or, hey, yeah, talk to me. What do you have? You know, you've been calling me for the last 20 days. I've been not picking your call. What do you have to tell me? Tell me, right? Or email, he responds back saying that, okay, get in touch with me. What do you want to know? Right? Those things. So it's very important that you follow this back to day 1 if the prospect doesn't get in touch with you on day 20. On the right-hand side, you will see some pointers that I have. You know, you've got to have appropriate timely follow-ups. You got to map your schedule to avoid losing a lead. Typically, what happens is you do not map your schedule, which means that you do not know how many times have you reached this prospect. So sometimes, I don't know if you guys, if sales guys on this call go through this, but typically what happens is you call this guy, say Mr. More, for example. I'll call, hey, Mr. More, how are you? And blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, after say 4 hours, I'll again call Mr. More, forgetting that I've already called him 4 hours back. Right? I don't know if it happens to you guys. It's happened to me sometimes, you know, in my career. And I understand that, oh my God, I just spoke to him like four hours back. And, you know, and he says, hey, you just spoke to me. What's wrong with you? And you lost a prospect there. So you've got to definitely map your schedule, map your follow-up so that you don't lose a lead. These are sales 101s. I mean, you typically definitely know these things, but when you're on the floor, when you're actually doing these things, you sort of forget these things. So you got to know that back of your mind. Typically sales heads, business development heads or team leaders have got to tell their sales representatives to make sure that they follow this particular aspect. Some people ask me, you know what, in my business, these many follow-ups are not good. You don't know my business. You know, you're a B2B guy. In my business, these too many follow-ups are not good. All right. Frequency can go up and down, depends on your prospect. If you're calling a CEO, you definitely don't want to call him 20 times, 10 times in 20 days. You got to, map your schedule. Probably he likes to meet rather than call. Probably he likes gifts. I don't know, right? But if you get in touch with somebody like a marketing head, it's okay if you follow up 15 times, 20 times. All right, because he does it himself. He knows it. He knows the rule of the game, right? So it depends. The frequency can go up and down. This chart, if you want to make it for yourself, the frequency can go up and down. You can follow up day 1, day 2, and day 3 can be cooling period. But essentially, 10 touchdowns in 20 days is a typical best practice used by most organizations out there. Let it be a startup or let it be a big multinational company. Startup, even more, right? And like I said earlier, you got to classify your active and passive leads. Your active lead is when somebody calls you and says, yeah, I'm interested, talk to me. Or yeah, I'm interested, why don't you get in touch with me, after 2 days. That's your active lead right there. And once it gets, obviously when it gets in touch with you, he moves into a different cycle. Your passive lead is somebody who says, oh, sorry, is my presentation still visible?
No, sir.
Sorry, hold on. Somehow goes away. I don't know why. Okay, it's back. Sorry. A passive lead is somebody who doesn't pick your call, but he cuts your call. and then you understand, oh, this guy actually is getting my call, but he's cutting it. So my number is right, my person is right. That becomes a passive lead, and you got to follow up with him till he picks your call. Unfortunately, many times he picks your call and says, "Listen, I don't want to talk to you." But it's all right. At least you're the right guy, right? My presentation is stuck again, I guess. Somebody is doing something on the screen. It's definitely not me. Like I was saying earlier, what is the best day or time to call or email? From research, looks like Wednesday and Thursday is both the best day for somebody to when you send an email out on a Tuesday, for example. Wednesday and Thursday are the days when actually people open a lot of emails, and this will be true for us as well. I don't open my Gmail for probably 2 days in a row sometimes. I'm mostly on my official email, but somebody gets in touch, like Vodafone or insurance companies or credit card companies get in touch with my email. I open them on a Thursday actually, right? Or a Friday maybe. So these 3 days are very important for people to open their email. So you got to understand, if you send an email on Monday, Sunday, or Tuesday, well, chances are that your email might not get opened. So you want to send email on a Wednesday morning, so you have a Thursday, Friday where people can actually open your emails. Similarly with calls, people actually pick your phone on a Wednesday and a Thursday, and typically between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. It's strange, but if you look at yourself, when you reach out to work at 8 in the morning, you are just starting your work, and that is the time when someone calls you, and you would invariably pick that call, right? Because you've not started your call, you've not started your work yet. Between 9 and 3 is when your lunchtime, your smoke break, your dinner, lunch break, your breakfast break, all of that, plus your meetings, and all of that happens, and you also do your own calls, your own work. At those times, also, phone is typically not with you. But when you go towards the end of the day, like 4 o'clock, when you're just relaxed and you think, okay, now I'm a breather, then you get a call, you actually answer those calls. And I'm sure in these 160 people, there are some people who actually make calls at 4 o'clock to their friends and family or whatever it is, just to say, hey, call me, but I didn't have time. Now I have time to talk to me. So that's the time when people have time to talk on the phone. So that's the time you want to call them, and that's the time you want to email them. Anita, how are we doing on the time?
Sir, we have half an hour more, sir.
Awesome, great. So how do you monitor your prospects? And I think these 5 points that that will come to your screen in a little bit actually will tell you what aspects of your prospect should you actually monitor, right? What aspects of your prospects should you touch? Like, for example, if you're trying to call a prospect, I give an example of Reed Exhibition, which you all must be knowing. It's a big company. You definitely want them in your customer database. You want to know the company status. Is it still doing well? What kind of competitors are working there? How many employees do they have? What kind of revenue? All of that. The last company that guy you're trying to reach, where have they? What is the last company that they have worked? Is there any contact on LinkedIn that you can leverage? Maybe your director or your sales head already knows some people there, right? So it's good when you go back to, say, Mr. More and say, hey, listen, this guy, Mr. X, is actually connected to you. Can you talk to him and then see how we can get this business further? It actually might help, right? How do you tier your prospect? So it's very difficult. It's very important that, like I said earlier, if you have 200 people in your in your pipeline as a sales guy, you cannot tier all of those 200. You got to make them into buckets. So you got to rank your prospect. Your first prospect is basically maybe your Marcom or marketing communications guy. Your second level prospect is maybe your CEO, or a third prospect is maybe somebody else. So you know your prospects better. You know the designation that you go after, and those are the people you want to make sure that you tier them, that you make sure that you reach out to those people in that manner, right? What is prospect tiering? I don't know if you're aware of the band theory that in 1950s IBM came up with this, which is budget, authority, needs, and timeline. When you're reaching out to a prospect, if he's a big company, if it's a small company, it doesn't matter. Does this guy you're talking to, Mr. More, does he have the budget? Does he have the authority? Does he need this right now? And is this the right time? We are at COVID right now. Unfortunately, there's very few, there's less business out there. Is this the right time to reach out to a prospect? If yes, what do you reach out to him with? What does he want to hear right now? That's what you got to think and mention in your email templates and in your call templates, right? If you're calling a sales guy from in a company, he has no authority, right? He's not going to help you close the business. So that's a wrong call right there. Maybe that's a tier 3 or tier 4 prospect, right? So you got to know, does this guy have an authority? And in the earlier presentation slides, we came to know that there are only 7 people. If you're talking about a company between 100 to 500 people, there are 7 people. If you go anywhere between 50 and 100 people in a company, that 7 drops to 3 or maybe sometimes 1 person, right? So it's very, very difficult. Sales reporting. How important is sales reporting, and what do you include in the sales reporting? Well, if you have a lot of products, in the sales reporting, you come to know, what kind of products are selling, what kind of services are selling, are these services and products meeting the expectations? And the most important and the most loved thing that people want to report or sales guys want to report, we are too expensive. It's very expensive. People are not affording this. You got to give some discounts. You got to give some freebies or gifts or whatever. So these things you got to include in the report. So, and then what's good for the sales guy is for the sales head or the director or the owner of the company is to come back and think, I think 10 of my sales guys saying the same thing. Maybe I should give a discount. Maybe I should change the product. Maybe I should move into a different territory altogether. Maybe I just, this territory is not doing good for me. Those things like that, right? Another very important slides. These next 2 slides are very important for you guys, especially for sales guys. The question that I get asked often, what do I include really in a sales reporting? I want to know how many calls have my guys made. I want to know specific type of calls, which means आज मैंने 10 कॉल किया, उसमें से 5 लोग ने मेरे को बोला कि यार मुझे इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है. 5 people didn't pick my call. It means those 5 people who didn't pick my call or who picked your call and said I'm not interested, that's actually good news, right? You have prospects who are right phone numbers, so you got to call them back in 5 days or 10 days, and they will definitely forget that you've called them, and you got to be on their tail to make sure that those guys pick your call and say, okay, tell me what you want, right? And you got to have your sales guys reporting to you. Your sales guys reporting what was the average length of time. I spoke to this guy, I spoke to 20 people in 2 days, and the average time that I spoke to was 10 seconds. Great, you actually spoke to somebody, right? So it's very important that you go through this cycle. The productivity report. You got to know, for a sales head, if any owners listening on this call, any sales heads or development managers listening on this call, it's very important for you guys to know how many emails or how many calls have actually, gone through. How many people have actually had decent conversations, right? How many people have actually spoken to my sales guys and said, I am interested or I'm not interested. You got to know this, because if you're not making those calls and emails, you got to sit back and analyze these things to make your ROI better, right? To tell your sales guys that, hey, listen, these things are what you're doing wrong. So these are the improvement things for you. If a sales guy is just calling twice in a day, which, I have got that experience where some guys feel that emails reach out better than calls, and, forgive my, understanding, but, all sales guys, including me, are extremely egoistic. So they don't want them, anyone telling them that, do this job this way, because they know how to do their job. And every sales guy has a unique way of following up with people, a unique way of following up with prospects. And it's amazing how if I get every sales guy to write, a page on how they follow up, I'm sure I'll have 158 essays in front of me, because everybody will have different kind of follow-ups. The next slide is basically a pipeline report. This is when your prospect stage is over and he is now a customer or a client, whatever you name him, and what are kind of phases that he goes through. The phase 1 is when he expresses interest. He tells you, yes, I'm interested in your particular service. Come and meet me. Phase 2 is when you go and meet him. Phase 3 is when he participates in a product demo of some kind, or you show him your PPT and your proposal. And your next is when you submit your proposal, and next when your sales deal is closed or it is lost. I want to spend some time. I think this is my last slide. Some time on sales lost. Many sales guys get very disheartened when it comes back. Lead deal close nahi hua. It got lost. Well, it's actually good news, because the deal is lost. which means that you went through the entire cycle and he went with somebody else. Too bad. But then, you know that the cycle is only so much. Like after 6 months or after a year, he's back in the cycle. So you've got to have some sort of a CRM, some sort of a follow-up schedule to make sure that you reach back to this guy who actually was lost. Yeah. Last slide. This is for sales guys, for sales reps, or people who are at the bottom of the chain of sales, which I feel are the most important people, because those are the people who actually are talking to your prospect. You know, they're the first voice of your company to a prospect. Very, very important people. So these people got to know these things, right? After, what happens is when I used to go to my sales guys and ask them, "Arey, kal kitna call kiya?" And they were like irritated for a while. Okay, why do you ask me every time? And I'm sure, owners here or sales heads here go through the same thing. Well, this is for the sales reps, right? It's very important that you tell your management, I only called 2 people. It's good for you if you reach those 2 people. Great, right? So the management has to know where the best leads are coming from. The management has to know who's the best sales rep. The management has to know, is my sales team geared towards my sales goals? The management has to know, how's my quarter doing? How's my pipeline doing? What is my forecast? All of that. That will come only if the sales guy reports these things back to the management. Otherwise, the management has no clue of what is happening. They are not on the sales calls. They are not making those 40, 50 calls a day, which comes to about 200, 300 calls, in a week. They're not doing those things. You are doing those things. So I think it's very, very important for a sales rep to, tell the management that these are the things that you got to understand, so that the management understands what you're doing and then makes the sales, their strategies better, so that they go and close more deals and you become successful as well. So that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope I am dot on time. I've got 10 minutes left, I believe. So if you have any questions, this is the great time to pick that. I'll try and answer them. Before you start giving those responses or those questions, I've got one from Miss Bhumika. And the answer to that question is, this presentation covered prospects, right? And your question is geared towards clients or geared towards people who are already customers. So I think it'll be great if you want to touch base with me maybe after this call. My numbers are with Mr. More and Miss Anita. You can take my number, call me. I will be very happy to help you. If it helps your company, I'll be very, very happy. So I can help you there. I've got some chats I can see. Or Anita, do you want to tell me some questions so I can answer?
No, the question is, Aditya, the question is how to handle rogue customers. Yeah,
that's a tough one. It's very difficult to handle rogue customers. Actually, the best way how to handle rogue customers is give them some breathing time. Like that time I spoke about over here. Let me just go back quickly on that slide. Since we have some time, I'll just spend some time here.
You have time. You can take your time.
Yeah. I'm just going back to this slide where if he's a rogue customer, right? I have got one question for, I think it was Himanshu, Mr. Himanshu. And I hope you're okay if I call you Himanshu. So for Himanshu, what happens is, how do you know if he's a rogue customer? You will know if he's a rogue customer if he picks your call and says, "Don't talk to me, don't call me ever again." That's your rogue customer right there. Or he replies back to you and says, "Listen, you know what? You're bugging me too much. Get off my face." Right? That's your rogue customer right there. These customers are very difficult to handle. The best way to manage them is they want somebody higher in the chain to get in touch. So maybe you want to, get your CEO or your owners or your directors, to make that call or to make that email, send them some gifts. If he's a really, really good customer, if it's something like a Read Expo, I would send him some gifts right away, because that's how this industry functions, I think. I mean, I do about 30 events myself. I spend about $300,000 a year on events abroad, of course. And what I've seen over the years, Mr. Himanshu, is people who are at a higher chain, I'm talking about sales heads, marketing heads, CEOs, they want to be pampered, right? And a rogue customer will not be a rogue customer if you tell them, here is a 1,000 rupee Amazon voucher, 1,000 rupees, I'm just saying 10,000 rupees, 1 lakh, whatever is your budget. You know, go ahead and spend it. I don't want anything from you. This is from me to you. I'm sorry I bothered you. Here it is. That's a goodwill right there. I mean, it's a great way for you to engage with him. Maybe after 4 days, you can call him back and say, hey, did you use that gift card? Maybe it was useful. I don't want to sell anything to you. I'm just happy that, you know, you used it, and maybe that's one idea. But we can definitely have a call and we can bounce some more ideas if you wish. That's not really bribing. It's actually it actually works. You know, you're not giving him money. In my industry, at least, we give a lot of gift cards to clients, prospects, without anything in return. Bribing, in my opinion, is if I come to your desk and give you some money and say, hey, this is the money that I'm giving you. Why don't you give me this in return? Well, I'm talking about a gesture of goodwill, where I'm talking about, next slide. Somebody asked for the next slide. Okay, there are too many people talking. I do not know who to respond to.
No, Aditya, I will take one by one. Once you finish, then I will take the.
I'm done. Himanshu, did I answer your question?
Yes. Got you. I have heard you and I have got my answer.
There was one from Miss Kaur, is it? She says that she knows everything what you have said, but how can? Where is that? I'm not able to get it.
I'm trying to find it too.
Yeah, she said that this is something we have been doing already. I would like to know more on how can we enhance ourselves in cracking the leads and don't lose our clients.
Yeah. So, what was the name again, Mr.
Amandeep Kaur.
Ms. Kaur, actually, this presentation is just a tip. It's just like a starting point. What you're asking for is the next step, and I would love to cover that. I mean, I do that all the time to make sure that how do you actually, if you're asking for converting the lead, how do you actually get to that lead? You know, what steps do you actually make to reach that lead? You know, first step is obviously a follow-up, and I think if I include all of that, this presentation will go to like 50 slides. So I just limited this to what is the best time to call follow-up, your typical steps that you want to make. If you do this already, it's amazing. And I think maybe you're in the next stage already, but there are a lot of people who, you know, are unclear on how to actually make those follow-ups. So this was basically for those people. But if you're the next stage, that's really good to know. I would love to have another presentation with Mr. Morris' blessings, and I will love to cover those things on the next presentation as well.
Sir, one more question.
Absolutely.
Mr. Kiran Kumar asked, can we do follow-up on WhatsApp rather than the email? Because
wow,
very people also see what the message he got. So
yeah,
can we seek permission through WhatsApp?
Yeah. See, in my business, you know, we make a great deal out of privacy. Okay, so if my client says, if my prospect says, don't call me again, I abide by that, and I'll not call him at least for 3 days, and I'll call him back on the 4th day. Going back to WhatsApp is the new way of communication, you know, and I think it's all right, I guess. You know, I honestly have not got one sales guy following up with me on WhatsApp. Just a little bit on the understanding of your question, who that was for WhatsApp. Can I get in touch with WhatsApp? On WhatsApp is, if you're getting in touch with this guy on WhatsApp, it's similar to you getting in touch with him on email. Well, the good thing is that he will see your message, which is great. But he can just block you, which is not good. He can just delete you, which is not good also. On the phone, it is very difficult for him to block you. I mean, he'll have to go through great lengths, and no one does that. to block you, you know, or maybe if your number is in the spam list, unfortunately. So in my opinion, and if I was a sales head of some organization, I would have WhatsApp messaging as probably the last strategy if I really don't get in touch with the prospect.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. I hope I have answered his question.
Yes. So one more question. Mr. Prashant asks, any tip for lockdown time sales?
I'm sorry?
Any tips for lockdown time sales?
Today's conditions.
Any tips on well, I have a lot of tips on lockdown. Wear a mask. It's a very difficult. It's a very difficult time. I mean, especially for some businesses, it's very difficult. I mean, I hope. I wish I was an expert here. Well, my guidance says that you know, you got to continue your follow up on industries which are thriving in this particular you know, lockdown. Hospitals, medical supplies, pharma, those kind of industries. If your exhibitions or your conferences or your events cover those particular industries, maybe it's a good time. But if it is something like a you know, wedding, bad news. You know, I don't think anyone is going to get wedded in this situation. Having said that, you've got to understand some amount of change in your business as well. I mean, if you're agile with your business, maybe you want to change some amount of aspects in your business. And I think you need some sales consultancy to understand, you know, from me or anybody else, for me or anybody else to understand your business so that we can recommend the best foot forward.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, how do we handle a rogue sales guy? Sales guy who's you know, very difficult to handle in terms of you know.
Yeah, I've been there. So I wish I could give an example. I unfortunately cannot. But how to handle a rogue sales guy, or maybe a disrespectful sales guy, or maybe somebody who doesn't do his work on time, doesn't do calls, emails, or whatever, right? Now, how I handle the rogue sales guy is, I actually sit with him and tell him, ask him, understand what he's good at. So, does he make good phone calls? If he makes good calls, well, you know, categorize one region for him, let him go. Give him a quota, tell him, you know what, don't talk to me for the rest of the week, get this quota for me, and, you know, stay in peace. Don't talk to me if you don't want to. If he's not doing that, and if he's rogue sales guy just because you have one sales guy in your company, for example, well, then it's unfortunate if he's not making some amount of progress. A rogue sales guy, in my opinion, has a lot of good qualities. A rogue sales guy has a lot of good qualities in terms of follow-ups. He's very rigorous, and if he's a rogue sales guy, he's definitely very good with his tongue. Okay, which means he talks really well. He doesn't like people asking him questions. Well, if we were sales guys, none of the sales guys like to be asked by their superiors, right? Very few people are rogue. But I think if you sit together with this rogue sales guy and talk to him and ask him, you know, how can we make his life better? I think it will be much, much better. And I think it'll help quite a bit.
Thank you, Aditya.
You're welcome, Sima. Anything else, Anita?
There are few.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a question. I also wrote it in the chat box as well. Sir, when to realize that client actually doesn't need our services at all. Like, for example, I had a client who he was a prospect, and he took quotations from me, and he was about to do an exhibition with me, but he did not.
Okay.
I have been following up with him since last 1 year, and he picks up my calls also. He talks,
okay,
and he gives me false hopes that, okay, I will do business, you do this for me, and I'll do business. But eventually, since 1 year, he has never done any business with me. So shall I now follow up with him further, or shall I just think that he is really not interested, and probably I would not bother him for a few months or
yeah.
whatever?
Yeah. I mean, we all go through this, man. I mean, we absolutely all go through this. I mean, If we all had happy customers, the world would be very different. But with this particular customer, right, and I've got this experience where people actually talk to me and say, hey, we are very interested, and then eventually when you go back to a proposal, you never hear back from him or from them. That means that he's wasting your time, to be very honest with you. And I think you guys, sales guys have to have some pride in them, saying that, 3-4 times, if he picks your calls and says, later, you can still follow up. 5th time, 6th time, I think you should just let him go. And you know what you should do? You should let him go, saying that, I think we've been talking quite a bit. Looks like you're not interested. Let me take my business elsewhere. If you have anything, I'm right here. Why don't you get in touch with me with these numbers or whatever? It would be great if I can get in touch with you. I think that's the best step toward getting that customer to understand that he's doing that in minimalistic damage possible.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk. I can talk probably hours on this particular issue because I face it almost every day. So if you want to schedule some time, please talk to Mr. More. I would love to talk to you about it.
I have one question, Mr. Aditya.
Yes, Mr. Rao.
Actually, Aditya, you may be following up with the many people for the membership. You can share that experience. That will help us a lot.
Sure, sir.
Was that for Anita?
No, what he is asking is that how ISA itself can do its sales to get more membership, right, Mr. Rao?
Oh, okay.
Same slide, I think 20 days, 10.
Yeah. No, I think even better. Mr. More and Mr. Rao. I think what we are covering here is just the beginning. Okay, because it's my first presentation and because I wanted the people to know and hear what I have to say. I'm just talking about the basic steps here. If you are, what the question that you asked me is a very mature question, and I think it requires a different presentation or different conversation altogether. How can you do better sales in getting memberships? I can do a 20-slide presentation on that, tomorrow if you wish. But this slide is a holistic slide, keeping all the industries in mind, B2B, B2C, together, pharma, exhibition, event, conferences, wedding, all of them put together. This slide basically is that. But I would love to help you guys. I mean, if we can schedule another call with just ISA members, I'd love to have that.
I think Anita may be having a lot of questions, so that will give us a very good idea to us, because she is there on the floor every day. She will be calling about 30-40 calls, and what is the feedback she gets and what is the repeatedly the customers will say. Anita ji, I think you will be the right person to give us the inputs for this.
We can take it, Mr. Rao, we can take it offline later. Let the people who are attending, let them get the benefit. There is a question from Abhi Varghese. Good question. What do you have to focus while hiring a sales guy?
Sorry, Mr. More, say it again.
What we should focus on while hiring a new sales guy?
Okay.
If you are recruiting a sales guy.
Okay. I'll answer this very quickly. So what do you want to focus? One, you want to make sure what do you want to use him for? Do you want to use him for a phone call? Do you want to use him for a face-to-face? Those are the only two things you'll use him for. So if he's on the phone all the time, you want to do a phone conversation with him while he's in your office, in different rooms maybe, and understand from him how does he talk. Is his voice very, does he modulate his voice? Is he very clear in his speech? Does he stammer, not stammer, all of that. If you're hiring for a face-to-face, you want to make sure that you want to see that he's presentable, he can talk well. If he's talking, if he's predominantly going to manage the North region, don't hire me because I can barely speak any good Hindi. But if you're hiring for somebody for abroad, you want to make sure that he speaks good English. If you're hiring somebody for the East region, you want to make sure that he speaks good language, local language. So those things, but also his inclination towards selling. Not everybody talks that much, and you want a sales guy who is extremely good in talking. You want him to talk until he gets tired and says, "I want to sleep." That's your good sales guy right there. Because what will happen is he will make those connects, he will make those emails, make those calls, make those meetings happen, and he will not sit until he gets that conversion. And that's where a sales guy gets. All the sales guys on the call, and some people have dropped, but those guys get energy from people who respond back to them positively, right? You want that kind of sales guy. Miss Verghese, I hope I answered your question.
Miss Anita, how long can we go? There are few questions still coming in.
Well, we can go for 10 minutes more because it's a 5:30, so we can extend up to 10 minutes more, sir.
So Aditya, another question from Mr. Dipanshu.
Okay.
How do you suggest we should categorize the prospects for tailoring the further communication?
Oh, brilliant question. Amazing question. I think question of the day. Because it is very close to my presentation. So prospect tiering is one of my most favorite things, right? Now, while the question is very, very good, it's very difficult for me to give an answer without seeing your prospect list. I would like to, schedule some time, look at the prospect list, maybe tier those prospects, segment those prospects in different ways. I'll quickly tell you how I segment my prospects. My target prospect is a marketing head. I'm going a little behind because the sun is right in my eye. So my target prospect is a marketing head. Now, a marketing head of a company is actually a decision maker, who buys my product. And when I tier my prospect, I will tier them in terms of those marketing heads working for those kind of companies. So if I'm targeting a company like Oracle, they have 20 marketing heads in different geographies. It's very difficult for me to understand who's a decision maker there, but I will target my geography based on the headquarter of Oracle. Now that's a very big example. If you're looking at a small company which has 2-3 offices, in India, maybe some in Dubai or somewhere else, you got to tier your prospect in that particular manner. Where is the place where the decisions are taken? So you tier your prospect based on designations, based on the company size, based on their spending ability, and based on how often do they buy. That's how you tier prospect in a very simple, language. But again, it's my favorite subject. I can go on and on, but I would love to schedule some time. If you have some time to talk about it, I'll be more than happy.
Aditya, some people are asking about your mobile number. Can we share it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay,
I picked the call between 4 to 6 p.m. So.
Sorry, you tell the time.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I have no restrictions. You can call me anytime. Unfortunately, I work quite a bit, so nighttime is the best. If you want to call me after 8 o'clock, that's amazing. Morning, I get up at 12 in the afternoon, so I'm a very bad morning. Unless of course there's a marathon in the morning, I do get up, but otherwise I don't. So between 12 to 1 and any time after 8 o'clock at night, I'll be more than happy to talk.
Can you spell your mobile number, please?
I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Moriji.
Sir, one more question.
Yes.
It is from Mr. Vidit Soni. He's asking, is there any software which we can use to track our calling and?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh my God, there are many softwares out there. Mr. Soni, so it depends on how much money do you have to spend. I firmly believe that there has got to be one tool which you take which you have in your company to track your prospects and track your calls and follow-ups. One such tool that I have used and I've benefited from, which I've also mentioned to Mr. More, is Sugar CRM. Sugar as in Shakkar. So SUGAR, Sugar CRM. And I'm not associated with Sugar CRM. I don't get any money from them, nothing. I just love the software. It's a CRM. It's free. You can, if you have an IT guy with you, you can actually make the CRM to whatever ability that you want from 5 people, from 2 people in the company to 200 people in the company. It's an amazing CRM to use. So Sugar CRM is what you can use. It's a free tool. I have implemented that in many companies. If you want some help, I would love to help.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Of course, there is Salesforce.com, there is Oracle CRM, there is Marketo, there is Pardot, there is Zoho, there is multiple CRMs out there. And if you have some money to spend, and if you're a decently sized company, when decent size I mean between 100 and 500, I think Zoho is a good option. If you're anywhere under 100, I think you should go with Sugar CRM. That's my honest
Aditya, there is another question. I don't know if you will be able to handle it. Could you please advise on how to convert sales in which multiple decision makers are involved?
Oh my God, amazing question again. So again, this is apart from my presentation. This is absolute sales. So I'm assuming that you've already met these people. I mean, whoever this question is, I'm assuming that this guy or lady has already met with these people, and then all of these people are somewhere involved. Well, I fail to believe everybody is involved in the decision making process. There might be a lot of people, but the ultimate decision maker is just one in most of the companies. There must be a lot of people who are people who accessorize those decision makers, who help them decide on which software or which product to go for. But ultimately, there's just one decision maker. You just got to find that guy. I mean, ultimately, it is just that guy. If you're talking about a really big company like Oracle, for example, there are multiple decision makers in multiple different countries. So APAC will have a certain decision maker. Your North America will have a certain decision maker. So it's very difficult to pin that guy. But your follow-ups and your constant touch with these people will actually help you understand who's the ultimate decision maker. What I would do in this case is I would actually get one guy who I can talk to and who I can make friends with, because I'm assuming that you follow up or you talk to these guys often, and you ask this guy that, hey, what can I do so that I get to the decision maker, and what authority do you have, in a very nice way. If I have to sell something to ISA, for example, let's take that example, right? Now, ISA, from what I understand, has 3 directors or 3 owners. Is Sunil More the guy who makes decisions? Is Mr. Satish, or is it Mr. Ganesh? I don't know right now. For me, all 3 are at the same level. If I have to sell my services, I would sell to all 3 of them and make sure I make an impression so that they decide themselves between themselves and then come back to me with a solution. That's all I can hope for. But if you're talking about a big organization like Read Expo, it's very difficult to pin one decision maker. But if you've pinned to 4 or 5 people, I think then it's easy to, if I feel Mr. Satish or Mr. Ganesh is talking to me better, I'll probably email him one-on-one and ask him, hey, what can I do to make my case? Is there something that I missed in the presentation or whatever? And they'll be forthcoming. That's what I would do, at least.
Aditya, there is another question from Mr. Jagan.
Yeah.
Some clients, even after when we give them best service, along with their appreciation, they keep searching for a new vendor every time. Finally, they are getting best bargain from our side. How to handle such type of customer clients?
So, if I understand the question correctly, the voice just broke in between. You want to know some clients which are already your clients, and they switch over to another vendor.
Yes.
And what do you do with such clients? Well, unfortunately, you can't do much, because the people that you are getting through to make into your client list, they are also going off with some vendor or the other. So the way I would handle it is, I would have actually a person responsible in my organization, person responsible for client retention, and a person responsible for making fresh prospects, or farming, or that's what we call in sales language. So the guy who manages client relations is the guy who's constantly in touch with this guy who's a client, and you typically get a sense of him moving to another organization or another vendor. So if you're not in touch, typically what happens is, at least in my business, and what I've seen in a lot of exhibitions also, people who sell exhibitions to me, and I spend about, like I said, I spend about $30,000. There is one exhibition I go to often where I spend about $25,000, each year. This guy gets in touch with me every month of the year, and it's interesting that he gets in touch with me specifically on 15th of every month. And I know by now, I'm in the organization for the last 2 years, and I know for now that 15 तारीख हो गया, मतलब मेरे को इसका email आएगा सुबह 8 बजे, and it's clockwork, So I think the issue is at your end rather than the client's end. Ultimately, maybe your service is not that good, possibly, but the main problem is with you not following up with the client, or you not keeping pace with the client to understand what he wants from you. So typically, the sales process is client ho gaya, usko baaj mein rakho, let's go for new people, So I think it's very important to farm the people that you already have. And in that case, in that fashion, you will make sure that they won't leave you again.
Okay, thank you, Aditya. I think the attending rate is going down because we are already more than 1.5 hours in the session.
Sure.
Anybody who has any questions, they can. I have given his mobile number.
Yeah.
Anita can also share his email ID. Anybody wants to contact with him, he can. You can contact Mr. Aditya. He is very open in discussing, because he believes that every new question is a new learning. So
yeah, absolutely.
I thank you, Aditya, for sparing your time to be with us, and we look forward. Those who are interested in having any other session, you can give the topics to us, and perhaps we can see if we can do a next one on this subject for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
All of you. Thank you, Aditya, once again. Thank you, Anita, for doing all the work. We have almost 170 participants, 169 to be exact. And I thank you all for your patience, hearing, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Signing off. Anita?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, people. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. See you.